Rick, let's turn to the other aspect of this project, the concept of content sharing. So it's not a new concept. It's not that we invented this, but what do you think it brings to our students in the program and also to our institutions, and in a sense that to become more responsive?
But when I learned about the Responsive4U and the element of content sharing or cross-registration, well, I thought that was really wonderful. I recall reading some of the survey data gathered by your colleagues in the Responsive4U surveys, one student in particular saying how wonderful it was to be able to take a course on Hong Kong film and its impact internationally. That student's home institution didn't have any such course, and now, you know, this possibilities were and opportunities were broadened in this way. I mean, what a pity that there are students out there who are really interested in certain areas but simply cannot take those courses because their institution doesn't offer them. So I think that there are many features of the Responsive4U that will be of value to students and their learning experience. And it should be encouraged. These are public resources, and while we don't want to transform the 8 or 9 Hong Kong universities into one university, and therefore we must, control it, or at least offer these possibilities in a limited way. But we should do so that students' horizons can be expanded, and I think it encourages them to take more responsibility for their own learning, and there are just so many gains that one wonders why it wasn't adopted earlier and why it isn't scaled up and adopted by faculties or programs more broadly.
We've talked about blended learning, we talked about content sharing. These two concepts are not intrinsically connected. We don't need to have one in order to have the other. But I'm curious in what you think the chemistry is when we put these two elements together. What are the factors being magnified because we have blended learning in this content sharing project?
Yeah, there is a dynamic there. It would be one thing to merely invite students from another institution to come over and attend a class. That would be another lecture, presumably, and although there would be some gains, a different physical environment, and meet a few new friends, perhaps experience a slightly different learning culture, but it wouldn't bring that as much. After all, if it is a conventional lecture tutorial format, then the learning environment and the learning culture won't be that different. But with the blended component, which means to me that the sky is the limit in terms of the teaching and learning design, means of getting students learning in an outside of the classroom sort of way, now it becomes something greater. And although the geography of Hong Kong is confined, and in some ways we are fortunate about that, yet the technological tools allow for this transformation to take place more smoothly. Students don't always have to travel to another university. They will learn in other ways. They will learn in project-based ways. They will learn through e-learning mechanisms, and they will learn collaboratively, so that it has those dimensions as well. I think the two together make for a much more interesting learning experience, a much more valuable learning experience than if it was merely a case of visiting another campus. And to that extent, one could say that the Responsive4U has advantages or learning gains over the typical study abroad, because oftentimes the study abroad experience takes the student to a university that adopts conventional modes of teaching and learning, and students sit in a class and they may not have the benefit of other ways of learning. And I think that blended learning moves the student, moves the learning experience more toward a learner-centered, a student-centered learning experience. Let's face it, conventional lecture and tutorial is not that. It is, you could say, almost a teacher-centered learning experience. But the blended learning aspects have potential to to empower the students and to encourage more self-directed learning, take responsibility for your learning, things that can't be so readily achieved in a conventional learning environment. So the two, I think, are important.
With all that perceived advantages and also the potentials of these two factors combining together, I like to kind of project forward to think about what are the possible ways, as you mentioned, for us to scale up this project, or in a way to adapt it into other curriculum, or even, let's say, bolder, if we say, would this become a new norm of university teaching?
Yes, well, that would be quite something. I would like to think that it would become a feature of universities in Hong Kong. I would like it to become an option for students across all of the universities in Hong Kong. I would hope that all universities would see the value of this kind of learning model, and that it would be scaled up, that it would become a feature of all universities, but all programs, not necessarily all courses. One could identify problems or resistance that is understandable if every course was required to open up to students from other universities. And after all, there will be limited places available, so there will be competition. But I think that when it comes to electives in any discipline, then I think some of those electives can be opened up. And in fact, another advantage is that sometimes an elective doesn't run because of insufficient student enrollment in that student body, in that faculty. And now, other courses can run, more courses can run with this expanded enrollment from other universities. I really can't think of any arguments against it if adopted carefully and with a view to efficient use of resources, while not encumbering the universities or bureaucracies and making life more difficult for students because of bureaucracy. But as a concept, I think it really speaks for itself, and I do hope that deans and university managers in Hong Kong will listen up and have a look at the Responsive4U and think hard about the learning opportunities that would be made available for students if we scaled it up.
Well, thank you so much, Rick, for such inspirational and very insightful sharing with us. And that wraps up our conversation here. And once again, thank you so much.
Thank you, Andrea. It's been my pleasure.
I hope my conversation with Professor Rick Glofcheski has triggered your thoughts around this project and the two main aspects of it as we discussed it. Head over to our website and leave your comments and thoughts on this. We'd love to hear from you. Also, don't forget to check out the poster gallery of these 11 wonderful courses. The posters feature their unique learning design and pedagogical highlights. Again, feel free to comment on them or leave your questions. In the next session, we'll have more interesting discussions with these master teachers behind them. So stay tuned.